So we have a good group with us today, and we're going to get started. I'm Madeleine Chassel, SPI Policy Director, and this is our monthly conference call on the future of the secular movement. I'm very glad that so many of you could join us today. We have a lot of great presenters, and I'll start now just by briefly highlighting our international hotspot of the month, which was on the Zika virus. And this letter will go out to many afflicted countries who are dealing with the Zika virus outbreak at the moment. There's actually over 30 of them. And I'll let one of our presenters go into more detail on this in a moment, but you can see this letter highlighted here, and it will go out to leaders in 30 countries. In particular, Brazil has been affected, and the main argument in this letter is for reproductive rights, because as we know, the Zika virus is affecting births, and it's causing birth defects, and women are unable to take normal means of stopping reproduction in many of these countries, or healthy means. And this letter goes into detail on how we can help these women and this problem so that so many are not affected fatally. We do also have a press release today on our new CAN network. The Community Action Network was finally launched a little while ago, and our initial press release is below that I'm sharing with you now on the screen. And CAN, its primary purpose is to help local schools increase their graduation rates. And it's a fantastic program, mainly dealing with the secular community. We are launched out of the secular community. And you can find all the details on this program and how it can be launched locally. It is a national network that will help to create local chapters. And I'll show you the link right here. It's now launched at communityactionnetwork.org. And I'll share that link with you also in the chat window. FYI, if anyone wants to speak to me throughout the session and they are online, you can also use the chat window if you're unable to speak up at the time. But here is CAN, the Community Action Network, which is going to focus mainly on developing parent-teacher relationships and getting the secular community involved in service work so that it's no longer just a faith-based project. Here we are. And I'm sharing this now in the chat window. And I'd like to move right on to our first speaker. If Christine Shellska is with us, I'll give you a brief intro, Kris, and then hopefully you're there. The president of AAI. Oh, hello, Christine. How are you?
Good, thank you.
I'll give you your little intro. You're the president of AAI, and you'll tell us about that. And I wanted to have you discuss today the possibility of producing a position paper in collaboration with other members of the secular community on this possible dismantling of the Canadian Office of Religious Freedom and anything else that you feel is relevant with your work in Canada right now. So tell us.
Yeah, excuse me. I'm not sure that in hindsight, because now I'm seeing news that our Prime Minister is supposedly being accused of radical secularism for considering closing this office down. I guess it's funded until the 31st of March, and there's a lot of debate about whether we should keep this thing open or not. And of course, secular people are on the side that we should close this and open up instead an Office of Human Rights in place of it, right? And if it's not too taxing on the resources of the SPI, I think it would be great if we could, produce a letter in support of closing the office down, and encourage our Prime Minister to make that change, right? So I'm not sure what else to say about it. I've got some links and stuff like that. And does anybody have any questions about that? And do you think it's worthwhile given the plethora of issues globally?
Well, we certainly think it's worthwhile. I'd love to open it up to the floor, but before we do, can you share with those who aren't familiar with the issue a little bit more about what's happening and how it's shifted with this new government?
Yeah, well, it was put in place by our conservative prime minister in 2011, and there was controversy back then. And they didn't, many people feel that they didn't get the input from a sufficient number of religious groups, although I have to say to their credit that CFI Canada is on their advisory board. Hey? So the issue is, what are they doing? We're dedicating, it's only about $5 million, I think, per year that we're dedicating to this, but what are they doing? Are they standing up for the rights of non-believers as well as believers? They do pay lip service to, non-believers, but I guess that's the status of it. It's, yeah, again, if there's any questions, I'm sorry I'm not a little more articulate on this.
Well, that'll do. And yes, please, anyone who has questions for Kris about what we can do to help, and I know it's already on our task list.
Yeah, I think a letter in support would probably just be sufficient to the Prime Minister saying, look, the presence of this office is kind of sending a bad message to the rest of the world, when one should be focusing on human rights rather than religious rights specifically. And people worry, of course, that it's going to privilege Christians.
Right.
Yeah.
Hugo, I think you have a question for us. Would you like to speak and tell us? Are you there, Hugo?
Yes. Hello, everybody.
Hi.
I think it's important the distinction between religious freedom and human rights, as you put it, because after the meeting of the Pope Bergoglio with the Russian, what's the name of the Orthodox Church, the leader, yeah, the Patriarch. They issued a document saying, stressing that the need for religious freedom and confronting it with secularism, which they identify as the worst enemy nowadays. So it's important to stress that religious freedom is also the freedom to be free from religion. So putting the whole thing under the umbrella of human rights, I think it's the right way to go. So I wanted to agree with this proposal very strongly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Hugo, and thank you, Kris. I do have information from Jason Frye as well, who's on our team, and he's probably going to be drafting the letter, and then we can all collaborate on it from there. But it's a wonderful proposal.
Yes, can I?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is Jason. One thing that should be brought up, I haven't had any time to look at this issue thoroughly yet, but we have in the United States a Committee on International Religious Freedom, and one thing that it does is it talks about prisoners for belief, which include atheists, apostates. So I'm going to look into that issue because sometimes these offices can do a lot of good when they're opposing particular situations in authoritarian regimes where they will clamp down on any other sectarian issue as a form of dissent against the ruler. That's how they put it. So I'm going to look into this and I'll bring that up when I have my presentation.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I realize you in the States have a similar body, and essentially, the Canadian government was warned, don't do this. Lessons learned from the U.S. context, but that's good to hear that, if they're doing that. And thank you so much for your hard work, everybody.
Thank you for being here, Kris. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
We will now hear from Bart Campolo. Bart is the son of Tony Campolo, who is a well-known speaker and pastor, and Bart is a former pastor himself who has now transitioned to secular humanism, where we want him. And he currently serves as the Humanist Chaplain of the University of Southern California, and we would love to hear from him now, discussing his role at the university and anything else that he can inspire us with. Hello, Bart.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, hello.
Well, hello, everybody. I have no idea how many people are on the other end of this call. So I'm just going to imagine a huge crowd, like a gigantic audience. But I'm glad to be with you. It's funny, jumping off of the last conversation that we just had, I came to humanism only about 5 years ago after spending 30 years as an evangelical Christian leader. I spent a lot of time working in inner cities with very, very poor people around social justice issues. And over the course of my long career as a Christian, sort of my ability to believe in supernatural narratives slowly died the death of 1,000 cuts. my commitment to kind of loving relationships and building community and fighting for social justice grew and grew and grew. And there came a point about 5 years ago where my wife and I looked at each other and said, you know, there's nothing left for us of the Christian narrative. But we were still really committed to ministry, if that makes any sense to you. And I don't mean by ministry helping people to believe in narratives or supernaturalism. I believe in trying to move people from wherever they are in their life to kind of the place where they flourish. And that had, you know, over the course of my life, that had become the centerpiece of my work in the inner city. It was about moving people into places where they could experience the fullness of life. And so, you know, almost immediately after I came out of Christianity, you know, I was a very public Christian and well known. And so, you know, since I was honest about my faith, I was also honest about my transition. And lots of Christians sought me out, and they would say the same thing to me over and over again. I don't believe in God either, they would say, but I miss it. And I would say, well, what is it that you miss? You know, do you miss, you know, having, you know, to believe unbelievable things? Do you miss being down on gay people? Do you miss subjugating women's rights and things like that? And oh, no. We hated all that stuff. We miss the music. We miss the church suppers. Are you still there? We miss going on missions trips. We miss gathering together once a week to be encouraged by one another to live the best lives we can live. And they would always say to me, like, hey, you used to run communities like that. Couldn't you start with people who don't believe in God? And so that became kind of my operating hypothesis. Like, I can't have been the first person to think of this. There must be communities of people that are actively pursuing goodness on the basis of reason rather than on the basis of kind of trying to get to heaven. And I kept wandering into secular communities that wherever I agreed with everybody's ideas, but like the vibe I couldn't relate to at all. It was all, let's make fun of Christians, or it was all separation of church and state. It was all important stuff, important political issues, but it didn't seem to me to be anything that you could build a community around. It was a kind of a negative agenda about protesting against mistreatment rather than a positive agenda that says, what are these values and how do we promote them and how do we help each other grow? And one of the places I finally wandered into, the place that inspired me the most was I wandered into the Humanist Chaplaincy at Harvard under Greg Epstein, which probably some of you are familiar with Greg and his book, Good Without God. I read that book, I went to visit, and I thought, when I walked in there, the thing that struck me was, oh, this reminds me of all the kind of campus ministry organizations I used to speak for in my Christian days. A bunch of nice kids gathering together, sort of befriending each other, reaching out to other kids and pulling them in, saying, gosh, you know, our community is really loving and wonderful. If you became part of it, it would really make your life better. And gosh, what good thing can we go do in the world together? That would be fun for us, you know, because our values say that we want to do that stuff. And eventually Greg introduced me to the Dean of Religion at USC. And he said, gosh, Bart, if you want to build that kind of community, you should come here and do it on our campus. We have 90 different religious groups on our campus doing with every kind of supernaturalism you can imagine. But half the campus is secular, and there's nobody looking out for the spiritual lives of the people who don't believe in God. And that's the important distinction here. It was funny when I was listening to you talk about the Office of Religious Life in Canada. Our office here at USC, we have a Dean of Religious Life, we have an Office of Religious Life. But the distinction is that they don't define religion in terms of beliefs. They define religion in terms of the quest to answer life's ultimate questions. Where do we come from? What happens when we die? How do you live a good life? What makes life meaningful? And so the dean looked at me, and the Dean of Religious Life at USC happens to be a secular Hindu. And he said, you know, your kind of humanism is really trying to help young people answer life's ultimate questions on a natural basis. It's just like, hey, if this life is the only one we have, and if science is our best way to understand it, what does science tell us about where we come from, about what happens when we die, about what makes a life meaningful, about how you live a good life? You know, ultimately, I'm with Robert Ingersoll, who says, you know, what science teaches us is that happiness is the only value, and the way to be happy is by making other people happy. And so, you know, at USC, when they brought me in, they said, we want you in the office of religious life, because there are all these people that are helping young people answer life's ultimate questions using supernatural narratives. You're the only guy that's on our campus that's going to do it using the narrative of science. And so what's interesting is I have a really great relationship with the other campus ministries on campus, because I'm not saying, you know, I'm here to demythologize. I'm here to convert people away from Christianity. I don't need to. Half our campus doesn't believe in God already. So ministry, as I understand it, campus ministry, isn't about convincing people who believe in God not to, particularly people who are happily becoming kinder and more gentle in the context of whatever their religion is. It's really taking people who don't believe in God and saying, how do we help you live out your values? If you really believe this life is the only one you have, how do you make the most of it? And on our campus, kind of our answer is, you make the most of it by building loving relationships, by doing work that makes a difference in other people's lives and that makes the world a place where other people can build loving relationships, and by cultivating a sense of wonder and a sense of gratitude for the opportunity to be alive, that's not based on some kind of crazy narrative, but that's simply based on the reality that you kind of, as in Dawkins' words, you've won the cosmic lottery, and there's no God, but you're still lucky to be here. And so what's happened is that we took a little dying atheist club on the campus, and over the course of the last 2 years, we've kind of transformed it into what the dean says is the most vibrant religious group on campus, because it's a group of people that gather every week to help each other pursue goodness. And that actively, I mean, I'm on my way to campus now, and when I get there, we'll be out tabling on the green, not recruiting people, not to get into debates with Christians, but rather to say to all the secular people, hey, you can pursue your values a lot better if you do it collectively with us. We bring in speakers, we go on trips, we get together and eat dinner and encourage each other in really positive value stuff. This is a kind of a circle of friendship you should join. And so our group just kind of is growing organically. Lots of kids who would have never identified themselves as humanists if it was about kind of politically standing against religion say, oh, if it's about pursuing goodness even though you don't believe in God, I'm in. That's probably enough for me to say right now. I don't want to take too much time. I don't know if that raises any questions for any of you.
Bart, thank you so much. This was very powerful, and I'm wondering, I love that this work is being done with the young people and not the so young people that the message is lost. I love that you are an advocate for our movement on campus, and I'm wondering in what ways this moves beyond the campus, either through your own work with speaking or networking, but in what ways is this beyond USC?
Well, it's interesting because I come from evangelical Christianity. I know a little bit about cultivating a kind of, I guess, kind of becoming kind of a thought leader type of dude. You know, the guy that has a podcast and a blog and that goes on speaking engagements. And so I'm doing that. And if you're interested, you would look at bartcampolo.org, and my podcast is there. It's called Humanize Me. And that, you know, I hear from people all over the country, and in fact, sometimes from all over the world. And what I hear, the people I hear from the most are either longtime secular people who kind of have lost their enthusiasm for the secular movement, not because they've changed their mind, but because they're sort of, once they figured out that they're right and everybody else is wrong, there doesn't seem to be anything else to do. And it's almost, and I guess, and I also hear from lots of post-Christians who say, gosh, I thought that life would have no meaning. I want to be a good person, but I couldn't come up with a good way of articulating why, or a community to do it with. And this is the most hopeful thing I've heard recently. And of course, you can just hear me on this phone call. You know, like I speak with the cadences of a preacher. You know, like I still, and the thing is, to be really honest, when I'm around the secular movement, a lot of times when I talk, people become uncomfortable and they say, "Gosh, it seems like you're trying to motivate people emotionally, that you're trying to speak to their hearts and not just to their minds." And I feel like, of course, I'm rational, and any rational person knows that people don't make their moral decisions. And people don't get their wallets out and give to things. And people don't go and do important things in the world on the basis of reason. They make those moral decisions in their hearts, and then they use their reason to rationalize them. And so, you know, I wasn't reasoned into Christianity, and I wasn't reasoned out of it. I was loved into it. And if we're gonna draw people into our movement, it has to be a place where they see, like, wow, this is a place where really wonderful people are loving each other and doing meaningful stuff. And so, yeah, I'm out there communicating and blogging, but I have to be honest with you. If I was a secular philanthropist, I would give money to me, because here I am on a college campus working with the best and the brightest young people, training them up in a way to build communities. And they all graduate, and they all go out into the world. And they're all saying to me, the ones that have graduated so far, say, I got to Boise, Idaho, and I was looking for a group like ours, and I can't find one. And I said, so what are you going to do? And they're going to be like, I guess I'm going to start one, because I know how to do it now. Like, we run the dinners this way. We have the meetings that way. We recruit people this other way. And so, in a sense, one of the reasons to work on a college campus is because you're sort of, you know, every political movement knows this, every social movement knows, if you get at college students, not only are they young and energetic, but they spread out. And so for me, it's very strategic to be working with college students. And I would really, and it's important for me to be not only trying to help these young people get turned off to like spending their lives making rich people richer and get turned on to doing stuff that matters in the world, but it's also really important to me to teach them that if you want to keep doing stuff that matters in the world, you're going to need support, you're going to need encouragement, you're going to need kind of fellowship, and you better learn how to build that. And so that's kind of the agenda. And I hope that, you know, 20 years from now, there are communities all over the place where people say, yeah, I learned how to do community in college. And then I have to tell you, if you're wondering why the Christian community has done so well in this country, despite the fact that it has the craziest, most bizarre and brutal narrative that you can imagine, it's not because nobody's doing Christianity because the narrative makes sense. They're doing it because that way of spending time together and that way of cultivating leadership has been honed over 2,000 years. And we would do well not to throw out the baby with the bathwater when it comes to movement building.
I would like to add, this is Margaret Downey, I would like to add that I have heard Bart on several occasions speaking on behalf of non-theism, and he's excellent in his presentation, and I would highly recommend him as a speaker to anyone listening. I would like to see Bart put together a media package that we can circulate throughout all of the non-theist community to get you in front of conferences and people. And we could all help you do that if you could put together something really professional that can be circulated.
Yes, Bart, this is Madeline, and I love Margaret's idea. If you follow up with me or Edwina with any sort of media package, and also I've shared your email address, I hope you don't mind, with the chat.
No, that's fine.
So that people can reach out to you. And what I'd be particularly interested in after this call, because we're going to move on to the next speaker, but after this call, I would be particularly interested in any sort of follow-up on action steps that we can take both with you and on behalf of the kind of work that you're doing in our own local communities and chapters. So we're particularly interested in how we can translate the kind of work you're doing into continued and extended work. So please let us know that in the future.
I sure will. It's not rocket science. And so thank you so much for hearing me out. Margaret, thanks so much for your encouragement. And yeah, I look forward to being in touch with all you folks. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Bart.
And I want to offer my services to help with putting together a media package. I have experience in that, and I'd be happy to volunteer my time.
Oh,
Bart,
terrific.
can you hear me? Bart, I didn't do a sound check.
Hello. Yes, go on.
This is Steve Buell.
Hello, Steve.
I enjoyed Bart's presentation a great deal, and I got a quick question, since you're running short on time, perhaps. Bart, are you in touch with August Brunsman of Secular Student Alliance?
Yes, I am. I gave a presentation. In fact, if you kind of wanted the long version of this kind of approach, I gave a talk for the Secular Student Alliance last summer, and they put it up on their website, and a lot of people write to me and say they've heard it. It's called The Power of Community. And so, yeah, I talked to those folks. It's interesting because I think they're slowly coming around to see campus work a little bit more like I see it, but they always look at me a little bit sideways and go, wow, you really are, you know, a different kind of cat than we are. And so I love them, and I appreciate what they're doing, but I think that this whole idea of relational outreach and really kind of trying to draw people in on the basis of friendship rather than just on the basis of ideas, it's a little bit, I don't want to say threatened to them, it's just new to them.
Okay, what I've been trying to ride August a little bit for, I'm the co-founder of the Community Action Network, and I've been trying to get August more interested or able to create a Secular Student Alliance alumni group, which I think you can relate to. Some of your talk reminded me a great deal of that need of following these college grads into their, you know, when they get away from college, they get busy with their family and a job and that kind of thing, and lose touch with the secular community too often. And I think there's a great deal of you know, of value here. I agree 100% with you that the thing that's missing so often, or generally, is community. And we need to follow these youngsters, I think, a little more. I personally am working through Community Action Network, and then particularly Parent-Teacher Community Action Network. I want to sneak us seculars into parent-teacher organizations at the particularly high school level. But
well, I'll tell you just a word to the wise, because I've been doing, in the Christian world, I ran campus organizations for years, and a word to the wise, and that is that young people do not stay loyal to organizations. They only stay loyal to relationships. And so my alumni, I'm in touch with all of them. I have one day every month that I just write emails and phone calls to people that graduated from here and keep up with them, because I invested a lot in them, and I want them to keep flowing and keep growing. And they're very loyal to me, and in fact, some of them have started to give money back to the chaplaincy because they know that, like, I'm dying in a pile on a fundraising thing, and they're like, listen, man, just wait until we start making real money, and we'll support this. And the truth is that young people will not support secular organizations because they believe in their agendas. They will support secular agendas that have transformed their lives and that they want to see transform other people's lives in the same way. And so that's kind of my commitment. My commitment is to say, hey, I don't really think this whole thing's going to work unless we transform people's lives for the better through our gatherings and through our fellowship, better than any Christian organization, better than any Muslim organization. And the frank thing is, we can do it better because we have a better narrative. It's really hard to stay a Christian if you're a bright person. I worked very hard at it, and I meet a lot of people. It took me years to give it up, and it wasn't because it appealed to my reason. It was because I didn't want to lose that community, and I didn't see any alternative community. We've got to build communities that are more inspirational than theirs, and that don't require you to check your brain at the door.
Well, I couldn't have said it any better than that. I repeat my urging of you to try to let us work on August to try to get an alumni, a secular student alumni group going. Organization.
Well, I tell you what, you put him back in touch with me. You call him and say, hey, like I'd love to talk to him again. I'd love to talk to him again.
Okay.
Hey, listen, I know you guys have other people waiting, and I don't want to keep hogging the space.
Okay. Thank you much, Bart.
Thank you, Bart. And Steve, I didn't realize you were with us, or I would have given you a proper introduction. But yes, we do have the founder of the Community Action Network on the phone with us. And Steve, do you have anything else you want to tell us about CAN or PT CAN before I move on to the next speaker? Because you are here. So glad.
Oh, not particularly. They can read the press release. And I think the thing that I would like to stress beyond the press release is the fact that we're trying to sneak into this, as seculars and a pluralistic society, sneak into parent-teacher organizations or form parent-teacher organizations in the public schools so that we can have a place to meet. The biggest complaint of secular leaders, group leaders, is we don't have an affordable place to meet regularly. Well, if we can get in charge of, so to speak, as secular leaders, if we can infiltrate and motivate parent-teacher organizations, we can have meetings on Sunday, we can have potlucks, we can have, as a parent-teacher organizational group, official group in the local school. And we can infiltrate, we can, have a great deal of community building in that way.
Thank you so much, Steve. And I think that's going to be the topic of the day is our community building. So Jason Frye, I know you're with us, and I would like you to talk about a community building opportunity that we have in Uganda, as well as the Zika virus letter, if you want to highlight anything else that I missed there, and any other advocacy campaign, important advocacy campaign bits that we should know.
Sure, just a quick question. Do we have Masareka Solomon on the line as well?
I hope so. I did reach out to him, but yes, tell us about him instead.
So I run a group called the Association of San Diego, as well as, doing advocacy letters for the Secular Policy Institute. And in that former capacity, I was contacted by a gentleman from Kisesa, Uganda, and he was soliciting for material support for a particular project. And of course, you get lots of solicitations regardless if they're spam or not for lots of different projects. And I decided that since I had this wonderful outlet to try to, I guess you could go back to the former language of evangelicism, of spreading the word, that I could look into the project and see how much merit it had, and if possible, try to crowdsource a bit. And I believe that the file that he sent back to me is available. Is it, Madeline?
Yes, it's on the screen now.
Okay. So a few years ago, in 2013, the Foundation Beyond Belief helped start a humanist primary school in Kisesa, Uganda. I think it's one of the first, if not the first of its kind. And it's to promote humanist values, to teach computers, science, and to be a good voice in the community. And Masareka, I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly, Mr. Solomon, I'll just say that, is a student teacher there, and he is starting a youth sports program. And you can look over all the details in your own time on this, but they need help. They need help for all the basics of a sports program. I was under the guidance of Edwina. She helped me put together a list of questions, and the particular file details where the money's going to go to, what the program's like, how it's going to help. And I thought that they might need more funds than they actually do, but I think that one of my next advocacy letters is going to be a crowdsource funding call for this. And considering how many affiliate organizations and members thereof there are, we should be able to help in probably a far more substantial way than Mr. Solomon's asking for. According to the line item budget they're asking for, they need socks, soccer balls, shin guards, dumbbells, nets, that type of thing, and they only need around $3,800 US. So I think that in terms of the good work that we do with general human rights policy and advocating to a lot of the times authoritarian regimes, I think that this would be a good outlet for our efforts. It would complement what we're doing in a wonderful way, not just, you know, communicating with foreign governments in the United States as well, but doing something solid and substantial on the ground in another place. And I think that this is an incredibly worthwhile project to undertake. And like I said, considering that we have hundreds of affiliate organizations with probably far more times that of individuals involved, we could easily raise $3,800 probably by the end of today if we put the call out.
So in terms of doing that, Jason, what is the best way for us to donate? Is there a link?
I am not sure yet. I've been doing a lot of additional work. I'm going to be putting some more work into this project. Owing to the nature of what I'm asked to do by the Secular Policy Institute, a lot of the times it's go research something, write something, move on to the next thing, because owing to the nature of how people damage and abuse and exploit other people in a lot of terrible ways around the planet, there's no shortage of things for me to write on, unfortunately. And so I'm going to be looking more into this project. I thought I'd bring it up now. And also, if anyone is interested in helping out with crowdsourcing or starting this particular project, I would welcome collaboration. You can contact me through the Institute. But yeah, I'm going to be putting some more work into this one, and I would absolutely welcome anyone who would like to assist in this. This is sort of just an introductory bringing this topic up before more work is put into it, and to see if anyone else would be interested in helping get this project off the ground.
Jason, I just want to make sure that your email is listed properly on this agenda. Is it? Are you looking at the agenda now?
Let's see.
Is it dimanso@hotmail.com?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm sharing that with our entire audience here, and I think it would be very easy for people to reach out to you and just simply say, how do I make sure my funds get to this project? So I'm doing that now, and that's a simple start. And when you have more information for anyone interested, you can share it with them directly for now.
Fantastic.
May I just say something? Yeah, Atheist Alliance International actually supports that school, and Halea is one of our member organizations. So it might be possible for us to accept donations for that particular project. And I believe that Humanist Canada also accepts donations for that school too.
Oh, this is great. That's Kris, right?
Yep.
Okay, wonderful. So, Kris, I think I shared your email, but I'm going to share it again. That's wonderful news, and I would love for, in particular, you and Jason to email one another and coordinate
Absolutely.
that. That might be very doable. All right, so I'm sharing your email now, Kris.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and I was going to contact Kris on the Office of Canadian Religious Freedom, and I'll offer some thoughts on that in a moment. There are a few other advocacy projects that I'm working on right now. There are a few letters that have already been written, a few that have already been, initially sent out, some that are still being worked on, and then there are a few other projects that are happening. And Edwina asked me to come on to just highlight those. I won't go into great detail on each of them because they're available for you guys to read, and that way we can progress with the time of this call. But the first one is a situation that's happening in Italy, and right after I wrote the letter and sent it in, the Italian Senate passed the particular law that I was writing on, except there is one not so nice fact about it. So Italy was the last remaining country in Western Europe to offer legal recognition for same-sex couples. And there was a push since 1986. People have been discussing how to have some kind of recognition, even limited, for same-sex couples. The legal recognition often has inheritance rights, domestic property rights, social welfare like Social Security, survivor benefit rights, other forms of legal recognition, tax benefits, that whole thing. And people have been talking about it in Italy since 1986. Since around 2003, there have been limited recognition in certain municipal districts. And in 2015, there was a court case that came about in the Court of Cassation, the highest appeals court in Canada, that said that owing to the nature of the Italian Constitution, that essentially has gender-neutral marriage, it says that all Italian citizens deserve equal protection of the law, et cetera, they said that the government must provide recognition for same-sex couples. And it was up to the legislature to do that. And then, what was that, 7 months later, I apologize, the European Court of Human Rights, they came out saying, looking at the Charter of the European Union with the fundamental rights of Europeans, that Italy had violated the human rights of same-sex couples in the country by not providing legal recognition. They in fact awarded damages of 5,000 euros per person who were suing on this matter. And the government, the current government, their platform was one of progress and reform. Hugo can probably talk more on this if that's necessary. But there was resistance. The news made it look like it was exclusively Catholic resistance, but there was additional resistance. Of course, you'll probably understand the Catholic resistance, but apparently, I don't know that much about Italian culture, but apparently there is a dislike of the idea of surrogacy. It's seen as baby trafficking. So these two elements of opposition went against this bill. The Catholic Church either put this on or they supported it greatly. A few rallies, one called Family Day. Hugo sent me information on another rally that occurred that protested this vote in the Senate to provide civil unions. The other side of this, and this is where more resistance came from, it was this adoption provision of the particular civil unions bill, saying that one spouse could adopt the biological children of the other spouse. And this is where people were afraid of surrogacy. And the thing about it is that this bill practically made civil unions almost completely analogous to marriage, including everything in the Italian Civil Code that referred to marriage, adding the language and same-sex civil union partner in the Italian Civil Code relating to marriage. Well, the Italian Senate ended up passing civil unions. They struck the adoption provision. It's still up to the Chamber of Deputies, the lower house in the Italian Parliament, to pass it. I'm going to be retooling this letter a little bit, but that's one advocacy project. The next advocacy project...
Jason, I'm so sorry. Do you mind if we hold on that second description just in case we don't have time for the next three speakers? And if anything, I want to direct everyone to our advocacy campaign tab. If you're joining me online, it's under the coalition tab. So you cannot learn it in as great detail as Jason is describing now and will on our next call, but you can always see what we're up to on this tab under advocacy campaigns. And Jason, thank you so much, because we're so in need of the education on these topics. And hopefully if we don't get to the next few that you're working on this call, we'll hear all about it next call. So thank you so much. Brandy Coomer, are you with us? Ms. Coomer will speak about the programs and campaigns offered by Google AdWords and how our coalition can benefit. And I want to give you a moment here, Brandy. Are you here? I believe you are. I'm going to try. Oh, I see you unmuting yourself now.
Hello.
Brandy. Hello.
There you go. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, I am.
Hello, how are you?
Good, how are you? Thanks for joining us.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for having me. After hearing the discussion going on here, I definitely can see how it fits into a lot of the initiatives going on.
Good, good. I have here a grant flyer. Is that something relevant to share with everyone?
Yes, it would be great if you could go ahead and pull that up on the screen. I'll be speaking specifically to some of the items on there. There's really a lot of information in this document, and I will touch on some of the more important points that are available in here.
And I just want to make sure this is the correct document, the Updentity document?
Updentity, yes.
Okay.
Yes, this is the correct one.
Okay.
So basically what's going on here is that Google AdWords has offered a grant that is worth up to $120,000 in advertising credits. Google is currently still ranked the #1 tool used by individuals to search for information online. It's ranked over Bing and Yahoo both by more than 3 times. In this age of technology, you can see that it's really important for organizations to be promoting themselves out here online because everybody is surfing the internet, using their computers, their laptops, their mobile devices, what have you. So many organizations have invested a lot of time into their web presence, but they might be feeling disappointed, realizing the website mission, their campaigns, their website in general is just really not producing the results that they had hoped for. And part of this reason is simply that they're getting lost in all of the media available there. If you can scroll up a little bit to image 1 up there, Madeline, there's an image there that I want to talk a little bit about. And basically what this is an example of a Google search. So in this instance here, an individual was searching for literacy books. Now you can see here where it says about 91,700,000 results were returned. Do you see that there? That's how many websites were returned when somebody entered literacy books. Now kind of think about this a little bit relative to a billboard situation. The internet is very similar to a superhighway. So picture yourself traveling down the highway and all of a sudden 91 million billboards popped out at you. You know, this is pulling for your attention in so many different ways. And so in reality, you know, what are you going to pay attention to? You're going to pay attention to what's most relevant to you, what strikes your interest, and what is located first. So in this example that you see here, you can see that the organization literacyworldwide.org was receiving the first placement. So organizations and businesses alike are paying for that placement that you see right there. And it's quite costly and it's very competitive. And that's where Google comes in. They offer this in-kind advertising grant that's worth up to $120,000 a year in advertising credits to be used for this type of placement. Now this kind of like breaks down to $329 of advertising a day, $10,000 per month. You can scroll down to a case study that's a little bit lower down there. And it shows some figures a little bit further down. Here we go. Here's a case study. You know, it's kind of like, well, what does this advertising money, what does it translate to? You know, what does that mean for my organization? And what you can see here in the after identity section, that second bullet point, it's talking about 150,000 placements in 1 week's time this organization experienced. That's like a huge number, and that's similar to advertising on a billboard or on a commercial. But the difference here is with the AdWords, you don't actually have to pay for this placement where the ad is being displayed. But what you do pay for is when somebody actually clicks on the ad. That's where somebody is paying for an AdWords, is when someone clicks on it. Now with this Google advertising grant, Google is covering the cost that one would normally incur from somebody clicking on the ad. And additionally, with about $10,000 a month in advertising credit, you can see between some organizations between 1,100 and 1,400 individuals being interested in there. It depends a lot on the competition, what kind of keywords you're using, what kind of searches are going on. But in general, someone could be experiencing up to, 1,400 plus new individuals that are interested in what they're doing. So, with all of this information, think a little bit about what your organization could do with $120,000 worth of AdWords advertising credits a year. Now, Jason had mentioned some initiatives with crowdsourcing. That's a great example. Crowdsourcing goes on online. Utilizing AdWords, that's one fantastic way to start driving a lot of traffic to your crowdsourcing campaigns. You can see here Madeline's displaying on the screen information about event promotion. If there's some sort of event going on, you can utilize these AdWords credits to drive people to your event. I know Steve mentioned that there were a lot of instances in which he was losing contact with students. This is kind of like a common thing that happens. Utilizing AdWords, you can hone in all types of people that are online and being able to catch them, being able to appeal to them. One thing also that wasn't mentioned on the flyer that I wanted to make sure that everyone is aware of, that there is actually an additional grant fund that's available through Google AdWords. And generally, this additional opportunity takes place after about 9 months of utilizing the Google Ad grants, making sure that your budget is being utilized, and the additional amount, rather than just the $10,000 a month, is up to $40,000 a month. So, I mean, really let those numbers start seeking in about how much advertising credits this really can mean for organizations and coalitions in particular. One of the benefits of the coalition is, you all have similar out agendas. You may be going about an agenda in a different manner, but the ultimate goal is still the same. And so if many organizations with the same initiative join forces, collaborated to promote a mission, I mean, think about how many more people you can get in front of, how many more people that you've lost over time, maybe people that don't even know about these types of things. You can reach these people. Just 4 organizations, putting together their efforts. That's 4 times the chances that people will take notice of what's going on and can really start, a different kind of movement, and that individuals are seeing from all over the web what's going on.
Brandy, thank you so much. This information is so helpful, and I want to make sure that we're tracking this information. So if anyone has questions now for Brandy, take this opportunity and ask about, how this can help us all strategize. I've also shared your email address, Brandy, and
thank you.
And certainly anyone can follow up with you more about Google AdWords and Updenity in general. Anyone have any questions
Yes,
for Brandy?
absolutely.
Good. Well, we'll let people follow up with you. I'm hoping people will use this chat window as a resource. Brandy, thank you so much for your time, and you can always join us again next time and tell us more. Hopefully, hopefully people will start taking advantage of this great strategizing. So thank you.
Thank you.
And I'm going to quickly share some information that we won't get to in full speech from our wonderful Hugo Estrella today. But he is going to a Polish convention for atheism. It's Atheist Days 2016, making sure I had that right and it wasn't non-theist, it's atheist. And the links are all here, so I'm sharing that with you in your chat window now, Polish Atheist Days 2016. And there's a whole history and a little bit more about the conference, about the organization. And so Hugo will be our representative there this year. We're very excited about that because we're having representatives on all fronts and all parts of the world starting to reach out and share our coalition building as far and wide as we can. And I'd like to close out today with Betty Rose Ryan, if you are here, and she is the Convention Oversight Committee Chair of the Libertarian Party. and will tell us a little bit about the upcoming Libertarian Convention in May. Betty Rose, you're there?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, of course. Hello. Thanks for being here.
Oh, thank you for inviting me. The convention that's coming up in May is where we elect our presidential candidate. We should have about 1,000 people there, give or take. Because it's in Orlando, we should have families coming in, so the numbers might be higher than that. We have several opportunities for your group. I was asked to speak about some of the advertising opportunities for your group. The first thing is you can purchase a table. I understand you must be a 501c3.
Yes.
Your organization.
We might even, truthfully, I'm not going to answer that. We might be a C4, but yeah, let's say C3.
Either one is not allowed to donate to the Libertarian Party directly.
Okay.
So if you wish to purchase a table at our event, the tables go from $400 to $800. Right there, and they can be purchased through the LSLA. This table will be set up. Come in on Wednesday or Thursday morning, put your information on the table Thursday, and you can keep it up until Monday noon. That is one of the ways that you can reach out to our people. We do have other sponsorship opportunities. You can have a drop-in into our convention bag. It costs $400. We'll reach about 800 people. So it's about, 50 cents. You supply that to us. The other thing is we have the convention bag. The reason I like the bag so well is because these bags are actually little attaché type bags that you can use as carry-ons when you travel. On one side will be our logo, on the other side will be your logo. I had one from the 1990s that was we called it the fear bag. It was forfeitures endanger American rights. I carried that bag for 10 years. By far, this is the most cost-effective, but it is expensive. It's $400. We can also up the number of bags produced so that your organization could have those bags for your use as well. The other one, the other sponsor opportunity that I think your group might be interested in is to sponsor the debate, the presidential debate, which will be on C-SPAN Live, should be on C-SPAN Live. It's $2,000. It would include a table, because instead of convention tickets, I will give you a table in the exhibit hall. You will have a poster at the event in front of the doors of the event announcing that you're sponsoring that, and you will be thanked on camera live before the event begins. So that is probably the one place where your organization will really shine. Everybody will see your organization. The drop-ins are nice. Like I said, it's 50 cents a piece, basically. And the tables, of course. Another thing is, if your group has someone that they want to send as a seminar speaker, we would greatly appreciate that.
Wonderful. Wonderful. I see a whole floor plan and everything. Does anyone have any questions for Betty Rose? Betty, I've shared all of the links to these resources in the chat window. They'll also stay available on our conference call on the secular movement tab on our website for quite a while. I like to leave that up there so that people can refer back to it. We also do record our conference calls, and they can be found on the website. And I want to thank so many wonderful people here today. I want to thank you all for attending and sharing these great resources with us. And if anyone just has any questions for any of the speakers or any final good of the group announcements to make, please do that now as we wrap up. Okay, well then if there's nothing further, we'll meet again next month, April 7th. We should have our CEO, Edwina Rogers, in attendance that time, but thank you all for letting me help to run the show today. And again, very grateful to have all of you here, and we'll talk to you soon.